So we're going to look at another group of phrasal verbs today. So this is phrasal verbs with the preposition out. Okay, so as we know, when we're looking at phrasal verbs, the easiest way to understand them is to look at the preposition, because each preposition has a specific meaning when we're looking at phrasal verbs. So with the preposition out, there's 6 main meanings. So we're going to look at each of those meanings today. The most basic meaning of out is just the idea of being outside or leaving. So the first phrasal verb that we're going to look at in this group is to get out. Okay, so to get out is quite a simple phrasal verb. It's directly related to the meaning of the preposition out. So often when we talk about, say, somebody who's in jail or somebody who's trapped somewhere in prison or wherever it might be, when they are released or when they leave captivity, in this case, we'd say that that person has gotten out. Okay, so for example, I could say he got out of jail after 5 years. So the meaning is he was confined, he was in a place where he couldn't escape, he couldn't leave, and then something changed and either he was given permission or maybe he escaped, but whatever way it was, he stopped being in that place. Okay, so somebody is trapped, somebody is confined, and then they are released or they become free. In this case, we can say get out. Another very simple phrasal verb in this first group, where the meaning of out in the phrasal verb just means outside or leaving, would be to go out. Okay, this is something we hear a lot. A lot of our students are often talking about going out. So to go out basically means to socialize somewhere but not in your house. Okay, so if you'd say, I'm going out tonight, the meaning could be I'm going to a pub, to a nightclub, going to the cinema. It doesn't really specify, but the idea is that you're doing something social but not at home. Okay, so we could say, for example, she's going out with some friends. Okay, so if she's going out with some friends, it means that they're going to socialize somewhere but not in the house. So that's the first group of phrasal verbs with the preposition out. The second group that we're going to look at is phrasal verbs with the preposition out, where the meaning of out means to exclude. Okay, so the opposite of include is to exclude. Okay, so again, almost a literal meaning of the preposition out gives us the meaning of the phrasal verb. So the first one we'll look at is to leave out. Okay, so to leave out simply means to not include something or to omit something. Okay, so for example, I could say the movie was good, but it left out some parts of the book. Okay, so what I mean there is it was a good movie, but it didn't include some parts of the book. So to say it didn't include, I can say it left out. Okay, so to leave out means to omit or not include something. Another similar one with this type of meaning of excluding something would be to rule out. Okay, to rule out means to eliminate something. So imagine you have a list of different options, okay, and you think, okay, this is not a good option, this is not a good option, this is a good option, and this is not a good option. So the ones we say are not good options, these are the things that we rule out. Okay, so we eliminate these as possible options. We say these are not good options, so we rule out these options. An example of a phrasal verb with ruled out could be they ruled out that option because it was too expensive. Okay, so the meaning in this case would be they had a number of options. This particular option was too expensive, so they excluded it. They ruled it out. Okay, so they said we're not going to include that as an option. To rule out is a phrasal verb that is quite formal, so it's something that you would hear if you listen to the news or you watch the news. It's often used when talking about legal proceedings, when it's talking about things with the government, business situations. This is where you'd see this phrasal verb rule out. So we looked at the first 2 groups there of phrasal verbs with the preposition out. Now we're going to move on to a third group. So this group is where we're talking about solutions, searching, and finding. Okay, so it's not so related to the preposition out in its normal meaning, but this is a special meaning of out when we see it in phrasal verbs. So it's when we're talking about finding solutions, searching for something, or finding something, we can use this preposition out. Okay? So the first phrasal verb, one that is very commonly used, it's used a lot in informal speech, but you'll see it written, it's used a lot on the internet, it's used a lot, in day-to-day spoken English. This is to check out. Okay, so to check out means to experience something or to look at something. So for example, we could say, do you want to check out the new exhibition? Okay, so if I say to you, do you want to check out the new exhibition? The meaning is, do you want to come with me, or do you want to go and look at, to experience this new exhibition? Okay, so check out means to experience or to look at something. Check out is one of these phrasal verbs that we use a lot in English. So anytime we're talking about experiencing something new, we can use this phrasal verb check out. So I could say, do you want to come and check out this new restaurant? Do you want to go and check out that new movie? So when we're talking about experiencing or looking at something, particularly new experiences, we will use this phrasal verb check out. Another phrasal verb that's in this third group of phrasal verbs with the preposition out is to figure out. Okay, so to figure out means to find a solution to something. Okay, so for example, I could say, I finally figured out how to get past the first level. Okay, so imagine there's a computer game, it's very complicated, very difficult, and I want to get from the first level to the second level. I need to figure out how to get from one level to the next level. So the meaning is, I need to find a solution, I need to understand something to progress. Okay, so I need to figure this thing out. So when we use the phrasal verb figure out, it gives the idea that something is complicated, but then you find the solution, you figure it out. Okay, so you could have a complicated situation in your life, maybe some problem. A friend could ask you, is everything okay with the situation? And you could tell them, yeah, everything's fine now, I've figured it out. Okay, so if you say, I've figured it out, the meaning is, I've found a solution to that problem. Okay, so to figure out means to find a solution. Another phrasal verb with a similar meaning to figure out is to work out. Okay, so to work out has a couple of different meanings, but in this case, to work out can mean to solve something. Okay, so again, it's when you have some kind of difficult situation, and through some work, you can find a solution and move forward with this. So, for example, I could say, I finally worked out how I'm going to finish the book. Okay, so imagine I'm writing a book and it's difficult, it's complicated, it's taking me a long time. Maybe I'm having a problem with thinking about how the book is going to end. So if I say I finally worked out how I'm going to finish the book, the meaning is I've finally solved this. I finally thought of a way to do this. So I've worked it out. Okay, so to work out means to solve something. Fourth phrasal verb that we can put into this group of phrasal verbs where we're using out and the meaning is a solution or searching or finding something would be to find out. So for example, I could say, she's delighted, she just found out that she got the job. Okay, so the meaning is she just received this information, she just discovered this, so she didn't know about it, now she knows about it. Okay, so she didn't know she got the job, then she found out she got the job, so she discovered that she got the job. That means maybe they called her, told her she got the job, maybe she got an email, we don't know. But when we say that somebody found something out, it means they didn't know it and then they discovered it. Okay, so the example, she's delighted, she just found out that she got the job. Continuing in this group, another phrasal verb is to point out. Okay, so to point out means to highlight or to demonstrate something. Okay, so an example would be, she pointed out some errors in his work. Okay, so this means that she looked at all of his work, maybe he wrote a report or wrote some kind of document, she read the document and then she saw that there were some problems in the document. So if she showed him the different problems with the document, the different errors, in this case I could say that she pointed out the errors to him. Okay, so to point something out to somebody means to show them, to highlight, to demonstrate something. Okay, another phrasal verb that we can put into this group is to sort out. Okay, so to sort something out means to organize something that was messy or something that was complicated. So for example, I could say, I'm trying to sort out the roster for next week. Okay, so a roster is like a schedule for when people are working, the times when people are working. This can often be a complicated job. So when we're talking about something complicated that is in disorder, so first the schedule, maybe there's some people on holidays, there's some people who can only start at this time, some people can only start at that time. It's complicated, it's not organized. If I sort it out, the meaning is that I tidy it, I organize it, and I put it into a good structure. Okay, so I could say I'm trying to sort out the roster for next week. The meaning is I'm trying to organize this complicated thing. A final phrasal verb that we can put into this group is to turn out. Okay, so to turn out is when something ends in a way that we don't expect. Okay, so there's not really just one word for this. It doesn't translate directly into another verb, but to turn out is quite a specific meaning. So this idea of something ending in an unexpected way. Okay, so an example would be, he turned out to be a really nice guy. Okay, so if I say he turned out to be a really nice guy, the meaning is I didn't expect him to be a nice guy. Maybe at first I got a bad first impression. But after some time, I realized that he was a nice guy. So to turn out is when something in the end is different from the way we expected it to be. Okay, so I could say that turned out to be a good movie, or he turned out to be a nice guy, or it turned out to be a beautiful day. Okay, in all of these examples, I think that it's going to be a different way. My expectation is that it's not going to be a good movie, he's not going to be a nice guy, it's not going to be a lovely day. But after the experience, I realized, oh, it actually, in reality, it was a good day, it was a good movie, he was a nice guy. So it's when something in the end is different than you expected. So there's another few phrasal verbs that we can put into a fourth group. So this is when we show something to the public or we make it available to people, and we can use the preposition out in a phrasal verb. So the first one would be something that you might hear if you're in an English class or in any classroom situation, would be to give out or to hand out. Okay, so this means to distribute something. So imagine the teacher has a number of copies of pieces of paper and they give one to each person. In this situation, the teacher is giving out the pieces of paper, or they're handing out the pieces of paper. Okay, so an example would be the teacher gave out extra homework to everyone. Okay, so in this case, the teacher giving out, it doesn't have to be that they physically handed the paper to everybody, but the teacher told everybody that this is what they had to do. It's not only used in a classroom. If somebody's promoting something and they have flyers and they're on the street, they could be giving out these flyers, these brochures, something to promote something. So in that case, you could use give out or hand out. It has the same meaning. And then a related phrasal verb, another one that we can put into this small group, is to bring out. Okay, so the meaning of this is to release. It's something that we'd use a lot with if somebody has a book or a movie or some music, they could bring it out. So first they're working on it, it's private, and then they bring it out, so they make it public. Okay, so an example would be Lady Gaga brought out a new album. Okay, so the meaning is Lady Gaga was working on an album for a long time, and then after some time she brought this to the public, she released it, so then it's available to listen to, available to buy. So this is the meaning of bring out. Okay, so it means to release something. Another meaning of the preposition out is an idea of ending or completely disappearing. So there's a lot of phrasal verbs that fit into this group, so we can look at a few of them. So the first one we'll look at here is to fall out. Okay, this is a phrasal verb that we use to describe when there's a friendship and then it ends in a bad way. Okay, so if a friendship ends in a bad way, two people stop being friends, we would say those two people have fallen out. Okay, so first they were friends, then it ended, and their friendship ended in a bad way. So I could say, for example, Sarah and Maeve fell out over something stupid. Okay, so here just note that there's an extra preposition, so you fall out over something. Okay, so the over gives us an idea of what's going to be the cause. Why did they fall out? Okay, so I could say Sarah and Maeve have fallen out, or they fell out. The meaning would be that their friendship is over. But if I say they fell out over something stupid, there's this extra preposition that is going to tell us why they fell out. Okay, so to fall out means to end a friendship in a bad way. Another phrasal verb in this group where we're talking about ending or something completely disappearing is to put out. Okay, so to put out, like a lot of these phrasal verbs, has a lot of different meanings, but in this group, to put out can mean to extinguish. Okay, so this is when there is a fire and we stop the fire. We say that we put out the fire. Okay, so it's to stop a fire, to extinguish a fire is to put out. So an example could be he put out his cigarette before going inside. So he was smoking a cigarette, it was lit, there was a fire, and he extinguished the fire. So the phrasal verb we'd use here would be to put out. Another phrasal verb we could put in this group would be to run out. Okay, so to run out means to use the entire capacity of something. Okay, so you have a lot of something, you use it all, then you have no more, so you'd say you have run out of something. Okay, so we're talking about completely disappearing. Okay, so an example would be we've run out of bread, we have to go to the shops in the morning. Okay, so the meaning is we have no more bread, we had bread, we used it all, now we have none, so we have run out. To run out means to completely use something, to use the entire capacity you have of something. A related phrasal verb would be then to sell out. Okay, so imagine the situation where you've run out of bread, you go to the shop and there's no bread in the shop because they've sold out of bread. Okay, so to sell out means when all of the available stock of something is gone. So when a shop has a lot of something, a lot of a product, they sell all of that product, there's no more, you'd say they've sold out of that product. Okay, it's often used when we're talking about tickets for a concert or a movie or for a theatre or anything like that. So we could say an example would be the tickets sold out in less than 10 minutes. Okay, so the meaning is all of the tickets were sold, there were no more, it was completely sold out. Okay, so the meaning is they sold everything. Final group, so the sixth group of these phrasal verbs is a meaning of resisting until something bad finishes. Okay, so when we're talking about experiencing something difficult and persevering, working through this, we can use these phrasal verbs. So the first one is to stick out. Okay, so to stick out, it can have, again, like a lot of these phrasal verbs, a couple of different meanings, but one of the meanings is to persevere. Okay, so to keep going through some kind of difficult time. So an example would be the first week is always hard, but stick it out and you'll be fine next week. Okay, so the meaning is the first week is always hard, but stick it out. So persevere, work through it, go through this difficult first period, and after that it won't be so difficult. A related phrasal verb then would be to hold out. Okay, so to hold out is to wait and hope for something, to wait and anticipate something, and don't accept any alternatives. Okay, so imagine a situation where somebody's hoping to get a place in a specific university. You'd say they're holding out to get a place in that university. So the meaning is they might get other options, but they're going to wait and only take this specific option that they really, really want. So they're holding out for something. So they're waiting in anticipation of something. So an example would be she's holding out for a place in Harvard. Okay, so maybe she's getting acceptance letters from different universities, but she's holding out for a place in Harvard. So she's not accepting the alternatives. She's waiting in anticipation, hoping to get this place in Harvard. So that's it, guys. These are the phrasal verbs with the preposition out. As we always say with these phrasal verbs, the meaning is in the preposition. Okay, so we started with some easier phrasal verbs where the meaning of out was quite literal, very much related to how we use the the preposition out in general English, and then as it progresses they get a little bit more advanced, a little bit more complicated. But these are the 6 main meanings of this preposition. If you can understand these 6 main meanings of the preposition out when it's used with phrasal verbs, you'll have a much better chance of understanding new phrasal verbs when you experience them. Okay, so as I keep saying in all of these videos, phrasal verbs are always being invented. There's always new phrasal verbs being used by speakers of English. People can invent them because we understand the preposition. So if you understand the preposition, you'll understand these new phrasal verbs when you experience them. You'll be able to put them into these different categories, and that will help you to remember the different meanings.